Hello everyone and welcome to another Figma prototyping tutorial. In today's video we're going to create this interaction where you can swipe to delete or hide an element within an auto layout or within an interface. And as usual, if you'd like to save time and support the channel, make sure to check the link in the description that will take you to my store where you can download the source file for this project. And now let's get started. Let's just quickly go over a structure of this final product. So we're gonna have two components. The first component is gonna be called contents, and then the contents component is gonna be pasted into another component that will be called swipe to delete. And then in this component, we're gonna create the contents of the thing that you're hiding, and here we're going to define the interaction, which means that you'll then be able to easily change the contents here, which will then update in this second component. Let's get started. First of all, I'm going to use the frame tool to create a phone screen. So I'm going to click on iPhone 13 Pro over here in the design panel, and I'm going to also rename this frame to be called test frame, and I'm going to do that by pressing Command R on my keyboard and then typing screen, for example. You can see that we've renamed this frame now. Then I will go to prototype, and under prototype settings, with this screen selected, I'm gonna make sure we have a device right here, because then when we launch the prototype, we get a device shown around our blank frame, right? We get this to better visualize the final result. Now let's just measure what kind of size should this component approximately be. I think we could make, for example, a chat widget. So I think we should go for like 350 pixels, something around that area, right? That will fit nicely into this interface, into this phone screen. So 350. I'm just going to move that over here so that we can use this as a guide. And a chat widget, as we said, usually has a profile picture, which means I'm going to select the ellipse tool by pressing O on my keyboard and then clicking to create an ellipse like this. So let's pretend this is our profile picture, right? Let's make this, I don't know, 70 pixels, something like that. And then I'm gonna use the text tool and I'm gonna create the name and the message. So name, last name, just some placeholder, right? I'm gonna make this, let's say 18, and then I'm gonna duplicate this and type in, this is a new message. So this is not gonna be as heavy as the name, so let's go for like medium, right? I think that works. Then the font size, let's go for 16. And additionally, I'm gonna select these two text objects and press Shift A to add an auto layout. And I'm gonna name this auto layout again by pressing Command R, and I'm gonna type in name and message, right? We are very descriptive with our layer names. That is not crucial, but it helps to navigate our layers. So we have name and message auto layout with both of these texts being set to fill container under horizontal resizing, which now means that when we do this, our text is going to break onto multiple lines. I will also make sure the spacing between these two, between the name and the message, is going to be like 4 pixels, very small, right? Then I will also, I think we could make this font size even smaller, so let's go for 14, and yeah, I think that works. I'm gonna make this slightly more narrow. And now that we have this name and message auto layout and the profile picture placeholder, let me just type in profile picture, or just let's name this avatar. And now when we select both of these, press Shift A, we again get another auto layout. This auto layout is going to be called contents. Let's just name this contents, and let's center this auto layout so that the text, name and the message is being centered vertically, right? You can see how it moves. We want to keep this at the center. And also I think we should make the spacings to be 16. We use the 350 pixels as a guide. So let's just add 24 pixels on each side, horizontally and vertically, by selecting the contents auto layout and then going to this auto layout section and setting these paddings to values that we would like to see. Now that I look at it, I think we should go for a bit less, maybe 16. I'm gonna use my arrows to adjust these values, and yeah, I think this works. Also, now when we resize this contents auto layout, you can see that the group of the text objects is not reflecting this change, which means that we will have to select this name and message auto layout and again set the horizontal resizing to fill container. Then this will happen, which looks very broken, but it is intentional. We're just gonna extend this back to a reasonable size. And it is 350 pixels wide. Now we're gonna create a fill for this, maybe make it a bit darker, so like light gray, and round the corners of this auto layout to 16, right? So we get this chat widget. So imagine this is someone like sending you a message, right? I think that's pretty easy to visualize. And let me use this picture of a bird that I found on unsplash.com so that we can paste this inside the avatar just so that it doesn't look empty, right? So I'm gonna go over here, press the image fill, select this image fill over here, press copy, Command C, and then Command V, paste. I will select this image right here, maybe double click and position this bird so that it's in the center approximately. So again, how did I do this? I press down my Alt key and then double click. This will enable you to enter the crop mode of this image, where you can position this image however you'd like, right? So I'm going to press enter and then also remove this original picture so that we get this. And now we can select this whole auto layout and then go over here to create a component from this. I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is go over here to assets and use an instance of this content. It's component. I'm going to move this slightly to the left. And this instance, right? This is a component. This is an instance of the component. I'm going to select this and press Shift A again to create an auto layout around this instance. I'm gonna again press Command R to rename this frame, and I'm gonna call this swipe to delete. Now we need to create the delete icon, which means I'm gonna go over somewhere over here and create an icon for deletion. This icon will be probably around 30-40 pixels tall. So let's just take this as a guide here and create our delete icon. I'm gonna bring this like rectangle a little bit, remove the fill and add a stroke. This stroke is gonna be centered and it's also gonna be 2 pixels wide, not 11, but 2. Then I'm gonna shrink it some more and duplicate it like this and I'm gonna create a shape like this over our original rectangle. I'm gonna shrink it again and then duplicate it again. Press enter, select this line over here until it turns blue, remove it by pressing backspace, and then press enter and also round the corners over here in this area. Shrink it again, and we have our recycling bin handle. Additionally, I'm gonna select this icon over here with this rectangle selected and round only the top corners to be 3 or 4, and then the rest probably just 1 or 2 or 0 actually. I'm gonna select all of this, use round joins, and then I'm gonna select this rectangle and round only the bottom ones, the bottom corners, 6 and 6, maybe even shrink it, shrink again, shrink, and maybe reduce the rounding here, right? I'm gonna use the pen tool now and create a line that's gonna be also 2 pixels wide, and duplicate that, move it over here, and again duplicate until we get this beautiful bin icon. This is gonna be our delete icon. I'm gonna group this. I'm going to rename this to be called delete icon, and then I'm going to create a component from this so that we can reuse it multiple times and change it in one place. I'm going to press Alt or Option and then click and drag to create an instance of this, and I'm going to move this instance over here, and actually I'm going to make it, I think, white, right? I'm going to rename this swipe to delete group to contents container, and then do one more thing where I again select this, press Shift A, and rename this swipe to delete. So I created a new logical layer between the content and the final kind of container. You will soon see why. I'm gonna delete the horizontal spacing, the horizontal padding from the swipe to delete container, and then I will select the contents container and use a red fill like this, right? I'm gonna make this red. I'm gonna use this color. We don't want to make this too contrasting, too saturated. I think this looks really bad. So let's just, tune down the saturation a bit. I think around this area looks nice. Then I'm gonna copy this icon, select the contents container, press Command V, and go over here to select absolute position, align that to the right by pressing Option D, then Option V to center it vertically. And you can see that these constraints switch over to right and center. That's what we need. And I'm gonna then move this delete icon to be somewhere around here. And we want to keep this hidden behind this contents component, which means I'm gonna go over to contents container, auto layout settings over here, advanced layout settings, and then select first on top under canvas stacking, first on top. This will hide our delete icon. Now let's take a look what rounding does the contents component instance have. It has 16, which means we're going to set the same value to the contents container. So 16 and enter. And then also I will remove all padding by setting these values to 0. And now we are actually ready to select this and turn it into a component by clicking over here, right? We created a component, and then we're going to create another variant of this, which means clicking this plus icon. This second variant is going to be called ready to delete. The first variant is going to be called default, and then we're going to create another variant that will be called deleted, right? And now you're going to actually see why we needed this structure. I will select the second variant, and then under contents container, I will go over to independent paddings and set the right padding to be about 40 or 50. And then I will select this variant and set the horizontal resizing to fixed width, and then reduce the width to 350 so that it matches the rest, right? You also need to make sure that the auto layout alignment is set to the top right or just right. And then I'm just gonna keep increasing this value until I get, the correct size of the delete button that I'd like to see. I'm gonna also move this delete button somewhere over here so that it's the same distance from the right edge as well as the contents component. So that's 34 from here, 32, 33, 33. Now it's centered. Now I'm going to go to the third variant, select contents container, and also add some right padding. But again, you can see that it moves towards the right. We don't want that. We need to make sure, similar to here, that this width of this overall variant is set to 350, which means fixed width. And you can see that it's now, kind of hidden over here. We're going to change that by doing this, right? Top right alignment. I'm going to also move this icon and align these two icons so that they are in the same position. And now I need to create the third state where it actually is deleted. I think what could happen is the contents container right padding should go all the way to 350, right? So that it takes up the whole width of this component, and also this should disappear, which means I'm going to set the opacity to 0 of this icon, right? Then I will select all the contents container auto layouts in all these three states and make sure clip content is selected. Then in the final state, in the final deleted state, what I'm going to do is set the height of contents container all the way to 0. So I'm going to select fixed under vertical resizing and type in 0.001, which will turn the height of our frame to basically 0. So all that remains is this. It's just padding. And then I will also set the vertical padding to 0 so that we basically get a variant that has no height, right? So it's basically removed. it's deleted. Then I'm gonna go to prototype and select the contents and then connect the contents component instance to the second variant. And I'm gonna say on drag, change to property 1, ready to delete, smart animate ease in and out, 240 milliseconds. Then in the second variant, I'm gonna select the contents again and connect them to back to the the first state, so that you can actually drag it back, and revert those changes or this intention to delete this object. So again, on drag, change to property default, smart animate ease out 240. At the same time, you want to have the option to actually click this red area, the contents container, right? Click this and then move to the final state, which is basically deletion. So since I cannot connect this to the third variant, I'm gonna go to interactions over here with this contents container selected, and I'm gonna say on tab, change to deleted, right? And it's gonna be again smart animate ease out 240 milliseconds. Or actually, let's link this interaction specifically to the delete icon. I think that makes more sense, right? You have to specifically click on the icon to actually delete this. So I'm going to select the delete icon. Let's first set the height of the last state to be 1 pixel, because I get some problems in Figma when I try to connect those. So let's just make sure that we go to contents container under the deleted state and then set the height to 1. And now we can actually take this icon and connect that to the last state. We need to be precise, so the last state. On tab, change to property 1, delete it, and it's going to be smart animate. And now let's try and select this state again and set the height to 0.001, 0.001. Maybe it will work again, right? So yeah, this interaction stayed, but the final variant is actually 0 pixels tall. And what we can also do, we'll have to set the height of this to 1 again, is actually select this contents again, go to prototype and set another on drag interaction. Oops, we have to be very careful, right? So on drag, change to property 1, deleted, smart animate, and then again select the contents container under deleted and set the height to 0.001. Also make sure the contents container under deleted is set to left alignment at the center, so that when we actually delete it, it gets, it stays aligned to the center, right? So let's just make sure contents container is set to this auto layout setup. And I think we could make this padding over here, this margin, a bit bigger. So I think we could go for like 120, something like that, which also means moving this by 15 pixels, right? So that the icon is still in the center. And also we're gonna have to move this icon under contents container in the deleted variant. We're gonna move this so that we make sure it's aligned with this icon right here, right? And also I'm gonna select this whole component, and under selection colors, I'm gonna make this red a bit more contrasting, a bit more saturated. So I think we should go for something like this, right? And let's just take a while to improve the design of this contents component. Let's just make the text gray, and let's maybe change the color of text to be dark green, similar to the background, and then maybe reduce the spacing between these two text objects to be 0, so that it's more overall more compact. And now it's time for us to actually test our final result, which means I'm gonna first of all remove all these rectangles here. Here we have, by the way, the delete icon, so definitely don't forget about that. It's right here. I'm gonna move it over here somewhere. And this is now our structure, where we have the contents component and then the swipe to delete component with all these interactions. And now I'm gonna go to assets and search for swipe to delete. I'm gonna paste a couple of those over here. I'm gonna also duplicate them. I'm gonna make 5 of them, 5 of those. Select all of these and press Shift A to add them into an auto layout. I will also reduce the spacing of these right here, which means going to this component and adjusting the value of the vertical padding. So I think around 6, that seems all right. And then I will use the text tool and type in swipe to delete. This is going to be our headline. This is going to be our instructions for what we should do with this user interface. I think I'm gonna place it somewhere around here. Maybe make this a little bit bigger and just move it a little bit towards the top. And then I'm gonna launch the prototype. And this is what we get. We get a list of items that we can then swipe to the left side. We have 2 choices right now, or 3 actually. We can swipe this back. If we make up our mind, we actually don't want to remove this. So we can just go back and forth like this, right? We can do it on multiple of these elements, of these objects. And when I actually swipe to get to this state, I can either click the delete icon to delete this, or I can, I'm gonna reset this. I can swipe to the left and then swipe a bit more to delete it, entirely. So I have 2 options how to delete this object. You can see that it creates a small, I don't know if that's even visible, but it creates a small line over here when we delete all these objects. But if you actually set the zoom to actual size, you can see that it disappears. So it's kind of some kind of a bug, an error in rendering the 0 pixels tall element, right? So I can now remove all of these one by one and use it, swipe interaction as well as click interaction. I can move back and forth. And yeah, that's how you set up a swipe to delete interaction. If I need to, for example, change the name, I'm going to use my text tool and say change the name over here to change, the text. I can even change this, right? So use text tool to edit text, right? And I can also again press option and double click and then adjust the image, or can paste a new image altogether to update the properties of individual swipe to delete objects, right? I can now, as you can see, that it interacts in the same way. I can delete this, or I can swipe to delete this. So yeah, this is it. If you'd like to download the source file for this and support the channel, make sure to check the link in the description. That will take you to my store. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching all the way to the very end, and I will see you in the next one.